Welcome to Season 2 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Join hosts Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country as they dive into the world of parks and recreation with a surprise guest each episode. Laughs, leadership, life. This is RecLess.
Welcome to RecLess. This is episode 14 of season 2. Thanks to Shane putting that in our calendar invites. He is constantly reminding me, and as I lose track of the many episodes. I was listening to a Smartless episode the other day, and they were at episode 200. So
we're almost through season 2. How crazy is that?
We're 36 into season 2. So my name is Tom Venniro, your main host for the day, joined as always with Shane Mize and Jay Tryon as we look to further our little Parks and Rec journey on RecLess. How you guys doing today?
I'm great, man. It's exciting day after NFL schedule gets released, so I'm all hyped up, ready for football, even though it's still 3 months away.
Bills versus Seahawks.
Patriots.
I was looking at that date. There's some travel being configured right now of which games to go to, and that one was on the docket potentially.
In Seattle.
Yes.
Yeah, home opener for the Patriots is against the Seahawks, week 2. But I do want to open with that. I'm glad Jay mentioned that. I don't ever know if Jay's joking with us on text or not sometimes. So, the videos that they all released this year, clearly a lot of these teams put some real production value in there. And the Buffalo Bills, I didn't watch them all. I've watched only a few, but I'm already thinking that the Buffalo Bills video is my favorite.
Yeah.
And Jay, when I asked him if he understood the reference, he said of course they're building a stadium across the old stadium.
It's Parks and Rec.
It's a Parks and Rec scene, Jay. I'm not sure if you knew that or not.
I did not know that. I honestly watched the video last night, and for those that don't know, they're literally building it across the street. So the video is Josh Allen leaving practice and then pretty much going across the street to live in the construction zone. But I don't know that there's a reference to Park and Rec. I just know that they're building a stadium. Josh is the face of the franchise, and it makes sense that they're putting so much marketing effort into the new stadium that he would live there.
Chris Pratt, the character,
is Andy Dwyer,
and when he and his girlfriend break up, he moves out of the house and into the dump, which will turn into a park eventually. Yeah.
What they call the pit.
Right. And
he did lives the exact same stuff.
Exact same thing. He was mimicking that character.
Yes, and Josh Allen nailed it. And he actually has some real resemblance to Chris Pratt when he has the facial hair. So I give Josh Allen and the Bills marketing team a lot of credit. I enjoyed that. I think it is very disappointing and another reason for us to contemplate Jay's existence on this show, that he didn't know that was a Parks and Recreation reference, but we won't talk about that today.
Okay, so listen, I have something to add to this.
Or we will.
You guys had no idea, and for those that are not on our video that can't see this, okay, if you Google, I just met Josh Allen, a picture of a woman that took a selfie with Josh Allen, but she thought it was Chris Pratt. Okay. So
awesome.
it went viral because she literally thought it was Chris Pratt, but it's Josh Allen. So
that might have been what led the Bills social media team to do it, is because how much he resembled Pratt. Yeah.
So I can see that. All right. Cool stuff, guys. All right. Real quick. I don't want to spend too much time without our guests because we have a great guest today. My opening question for you both is, realistically, we all feel at a municipal or a community rec level that we provide top-notch services. I feel at least the three of us do, and we're very proud of that. And many of our colleagues and guests also feel the same way. Now, that said, there's a reality that we cannot offer every service, right? We try to be it all at times, but we've had this discussion before that we can't do it all. We can't offer it all in a perfect world. We would have we would have a therapeutic section. We would have a section that's, dealing with any segment of the community. But that said, the reality is we have partners too, people who can come in and do that. So do either of you in your communities or communities you've served in the past, is there a non-for-profit or a partner group that provided a supplemental service that your organization really just didn't have the resources, the know-how, or the expertise to provide, that you work with, and they came in and did a bang-up job, and it was just a wonderful partnership for your community?
Yeah, I could go first because we're trying to build a similar platform here in Concord. But when I was with Mecklenburg County, we did a massive initiative to teach kids how to ride a bike. Okay. And it was called the Learn to Ride program. So we actually took a trailer and totally upfitted it with all the tools and equipment to repair bikes, fix bikes, store bikes. And it was something we would do on a very regular basis. Is we would pretty much go to a rec center parking lot or a park and do a big, massive Learn to Ride event, teaching kids how to ride a bike. And it was a partnership with a few different nonprofit organizations. And we would always have some staff there, but the amount of people that would come to these events, like we'd get over 100 people that were coming to get bike lessons, and not just kids. Like we would have adults, we'd have teenagers, like where all ages would come, and we would only bring 3 or 4 staff, but there'd be a lot of volunteers and a lot of nonprofit partners that would come to the table. There's an organization in Charlotte called Trips for Kids, really great bike organization that focused on getting kids on bikes and doing lessons throughout the city, and also just bike safety in general. So that is the first one that comes to mind, because we're actually doing a bike playground here in Concord, or planning one. So, the more we can get people riding on a safe level and getting people on greenways to get transported, and connectivity focuses is just a great thing that we've done here.
That's great. What was the initiative called, Jay? Learn to Ride?
Learn to Ride, LTR. Learn to Ride. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you can actually just go to Learn to Ride Charlotte website and find more information about it.
Yeah, I think this is a staple for most of us, right? We just can't provide it all. And I think of all the years or over my time in this industry, Missouri City Green and the CCA down in the Houston area for me. And even in Fort Worth, there was a group called Hi Kids that did some really cool things for us that supplemented a lot of stuff we were able to do in some of the inner city. For Pflugerville specifically, I think it'd be the Monarch Sanctuary Project. There is the 35 corridor, which really goes north to south through most of Texas, is a corridor that the monarch butterflies migrate through. And a lot of cities on either side of this 35 corridor, I-35 corridor, have monarchs coming through them and try to do a lot of monarch projects where areas where they can come in safely and as they're passing through your community. And we partnered with a group that has done some incredible stuff, and not just helping us build some really cool spots along the way and upgrading some of our lakes and other spaces where these will be great spots where pollinator beds happen, but the education behind it and all the volunteer opportunities they're providing with this master gardener group that comes in and does this. So hat tip for us to the Monarch Sanctuary Project and all the work they do in the Pflugerville and probably really the central Texas area for us. A great group.
Yeah, I think it's important. You guys bring up some really great partnerships there, and it's obviously it's important to partner, but it's also important to find people who are passionate about those initiatives that we may not have the resources. And so for me, I've shared this with Jay. We were presenting in Maryland, and it was part of our session, just a small part, but one that I wanted to highlight was more facility-based and programmatic, but more facility-based, and that's the Greater Rochester Disc Golf. And it's like any other amenity. You hope to have someone who can help you either design it or guide you to make it the best of the best. And so what they've done specifically for Hilton-Parma and the Parma Disc Golf course recently and over the years, they've been a part of it since it began. They helped with the design, but over the last 3 years, they went through a complete redesign of the course, brought it up to national standards, made it a national tournament course. So this past summer in August, with all the improvements they were making, they were working towards for the last 3 years, they put in a bid with the National Disc Golf Association, and they got the bid to hold the National Disc Golf Tournament at our course. Oh, what cool. An experience. Yeah, for economic impact, tourism, bringing people to our area, highlighting this area. It was phenomenal. Ever since then, ever since they redid the course and that tournament came, the traffic has been incredible, right? Like you can't go near that area. And that's a shared space with a lot of trails. So we actually have had some complaints, believe it or not, from some of just the walkers because there's so many people coming now when now obviously the weather's getting nicer around here. So it's gonna pop up a little bit more in terms of usage. But not only did they do this and help us out and bring that national exposure, which is kind of cool. It was all broadcasted, by the way. They had camera crews. And in addition to that, the money and volunteer hours they put into the course, we would never be able to either afford or put towards it. All new baskets, all new pads funded by this group, all new signage. And then maybe one of the coolest things that they've done for us is in preparation for this whole redesign in the tournament is they put together a drone overview. So picture a PGA golf event where they're going through at the beginning of the coverage and they're going and doing a flyover of the course in each hole. They put together one of those for us. And I don't know if you've ever quoted anything like that out. It's not inexpensive. It's very costly to have someone come in.
Inexpensive.
Correct. It's not cheap.
You could have said that. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably should have gone with the word cheap, huh? Yeah. Okay. So either way, really great partnership. And I encourage all of our listeners to find those partners out there that can help you enhance your services because they are out there. They do exist.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually mentioned the disc golf fund. We have a huge disc golf following here in Charlotte, and there's a disc golf group that has done the same thing with so many different courses here. And I don't know that we would have as many courses here if we didn't have that group because there's a lot of volunteers that come together and do that. And, when you find a group of folks that are passionate about something, it's amazing the support they can get outside of just that small group because they're going to lean on their friends and family and coworkers and they'll lend a hand too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what comes back to that passion, right? These people love what they do. They want to see it grow and thrive anywhere. Good stuff, guys. Thanks for indulging me there. And let's not, that was a little longer than I expected. I feel like they always are when I'm the host, but I do not want to leave our guest hanging anymore. We have a great guest. Our guest is a member of a group that we have a lot of people who are members of that same group.
YPN.
I was just trying not to say Academy member again, but we do have another Academy member with us this week. Our guest Academy member.
We really should change the name of this podcast to the Academy with Tom, Jay, and Shane. Yeah.
The RecLess Academy. All right.
Oh, the RecLess Academy.
Yeah. We're on to something. We'll see how the Academy feels about that. Either way, our guest was, interestingly enough, not where they live, but born in Las Vegas and came from an Air Force family. Our guest, fun fact, was voted the most dependable in their high school class, which I'd like to have a little fun with that with you guys later. Our guest is a new grandparent, although once we got to video and you see who our guest is, you would never be able to guess that they were a grandparent. So very happy for them. Congratulations on that. Like two of our hosts, our guest is a former Robert Crawford Ward recipient.
Which two is that?
We've already covered it. All right. I'm not gonna call out anybody at this point. The guest
knife keeps getting deeper and deeper.
The guest is physically close to one of you, about an hour and a half or so.
Okay, but just so you know, up until that hint, the other hints are like not going to give us any clue whatsoever.
Anything.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, we're getting closer now. Guest is the past president of their state association and formerly served the city of Arlington.
Stacey Dicke?
You got it. How did Yes, our guest is also a former New Braunfels Parks and Recreation Director and the current Executive Director of the New Braunfels Youth Collaborative. Welcome, Stacey Dicke.
Hey, welcome.
Hi.
Hey,
that
Stacey.
was a good guess.
Yeah, what was it, Arlington? Was it?
Hour and a half away. It really peaked. I was like, okay, and I thought you had said when we had you up in Pflugerville that you had just recently become a grandparent or were fixing to be a grandparent, and so I kind of had a couple things that were I thought, and then once you said Arlington, I remembered she was also a state of Texas Young Professional of the Year, and I think that's where you won it was Arlington or up in the DFW area. So
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
that was in
welcome.
Waco actually, and that was a long time ago. Good
Shane,
stuff.
one
It's
other
good to
quick.
see you guys.
Yes,
Yes,
good
you
to
too.
see
This
you.
is great.
Yes, Jay and Stacey were paired or part of the buddy pairing at the last conference in Dallas, correct? So a little
would that have been
connection there.
another hint? What were the other hints? Go ahead.
Actually,
No,
I left that one out.
A few years ago, sitting at the banquet together for the Academy, which was a great evening.
Yeah, yeah,
When you were with Kelsey.
that's right. Yeah.
Kelsey.
So Shane, when Stacey and I got on today with the name Unicorn, she'd explained to me what that was. Do you know?
New Braunfels unicorns. Yeah.
All right,
That's
all
right.
right.
So
I
There you
thought
go.
at
school
first,
mascot.
I thought at first potentially it was because you talked about a provider that can provide everything and how we can't. And I was like, oh, I was wondering what provider we have in our industry that literally can. I was thinking maybe it was a huge agency, but yeah, New Braunfels unicorns.
All right. So Stacey, you are a very prominent Parks and Rec professional, and you serve the community rec, municipal rec field for a long time. And you did so as someone that people looked up to and went to for advice, a model basically of excellence. And so you recently, about a year ago, made
Right.
this switch over to nonprofit work, and you are currently executive director of the Youth Collaborative in New Braunfels. So you stayed, you're in the same community that you just recently served as Parks and Rec director. And what you're doing now is fairly amazing, and it ties into that initial question that we asked. Your primary target is serving youth ages 12 to 18, correct?
Right.
And
Focused on teens.
for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I could at least speak a little bit to our area. Going back to what we started talking about earlier is we do lack here, right? Here and there. We don't necessarily offer great services for everybody. I wish we did. And the teens, especially the later age teens, but that 12 to 18, that's one that I believe that's a service we're not hitting. And so to have a group like yours in our area, I would love, first of all. But for our listeners, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the Youth Collaborative and, what it's about.
Yeah, happy to. First of all, thank you for all the kind words you said. I'm not sure that I deserve all that acclamation, but I always tell people I just have good staying power. I've been around a long time. So, but thank you for that. So this new organization is called the New Braunfels Youth Collaborative, and we exist to serve 6th through 12th grade students in their out of school time. So just like what you were describing, Tom, here in New Braunfels, that was a gap in services in our community. Now, we do have agencies in the community that serve the age group, but just not focused on their out of school time. So we have housing for older foster students. We have Young Life that, serves their spiritual needs. We have, food programs for the age group, but just not an agency that was focused on giving them something positive to do when they're out of school versus engaging in risky behavior, the high probability of that happening. So actually, it all came together before I was a part of it. So the need was identified by some leaders in the community. They formed the nonprofit. We got a lease on what was originally New Braunfels High School, the first high school in town, and then later became the administration building for the school district. It's a 3-story, 27,000 square foot building. It's a historic landmark. It's 100 years old. And so it's a really cool, it's right on the edge of our downtown, like literally catty corner from one of the most popular night hangouts downtown. We have a really active downtown. So it's cool to be a part of that downtown area. But anyway, they got the lease on the building. They got some initial funding in place. And then they went looking for somebody to help them stand the operation up. And when they came to talk to me about it, I thought they were going to ask me to partner, that they wanted Parks and Recreation to partner, right? We all do that. We get requests all the time for that, which I was all in for. And then the lady that was speaking with me, she says, well, we need somebody to run it. I'm like, great. Well, do you have anybody in mind? And they said, yeah, you, which I was not expecting. And I always say they were so smart to say, don't answer us today. Just think about it. I'm going to call you in 2 weeks. I want to give you some time just to think about it. Because if I'd answered that day, I probably would have said, thank you for thinking of me, but I am happy where I am because I was really happy. A 30-year career in Parks and Recreation, and I've loved almost every minute of it, not every single minute.
The almost was the times over Kelsey. That's what I'm going to tell her.
No, Kelsey made it easy, that's for sure. So anyway, over the couple of weeks, my husband and I really, the idea sinks in like, well, I probably could do this. And what really hit home with me was the opportunity to impact the community in a different way than I have been. I've been the director here for 19 years. And again, I got to do a lot of exciting, wonderful projects. I'm just so thankful that I was a part of, but this will have generational impact on our community, putting these services together for teens and this facility that's going to be amazing when it's finished. I think it'll set a high bar for communities on what they can do for their teens. And we built an amazing recreation center here in New Braunfels called Das Rec. If you've never heard the name, there's a whole story behind the name. We're a German community, but it's called Das Rec, and it's 72,000 square feet. But there's really no space inside there for teens just to come and hang out and be with their friends. It's such a busy place. There's over 19,000 members of this rec center. So every square inch of it is taken up with membership. The vast majority are adults. There are, of course, youth activities that take place, but they're programmed, they're scheduled, you sign up for them, and most of them focus on elementary age. And so even with that really successful recreation center that we built, the focus was not for teens and the space wasn't there. And so this, I think, is just the best alternative that the community could possibly dream up. And so it's just, I'm really flattered to be a part of it and excited to see it all come to fruition.
Pflugerville is building a rec center, and it's a complete hat tip to Das Rec. I've talked to Stacey about it. I've talked to her team about it, or her former team, Stephanie and some folks. I brought Kelsey over essentially to help us build it. Kelsey was here. It's going to be twice the size almost of Das Rec. It's 130,000 square feet. And we're still having a tough time figuring out what to do with that, what I would say lost population. It's almost like, if my wife buys a bigger purse, everything that was in her smaller purse goes in, but she finds new stuff to put in that purse. And so you put a bigger rec center in, you still find other senior programs or other kid programs to put in that. And anyone that's ever worked with camp knows that's an incredible age of kids, that last group as they're aging out. And then those kids that stay on and be Jay has a group, what is it, a leadership in charge or camp counselors in charge program or whatever, where they come back as alumni and help you as a couple years as like an interim counselor. But it doesn't matter what you throw out for them. There could be pushback and they will grow bored of it. I used to tell my oldest group of my teens, we could do paintball every day and you would hate paintball by the end of the summer. Like, you can't throw your fastball every day to that group. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to save some of your best pitches for later in the summer. And so even when we're building a bigger space, it's tough to find programming opportunities. You almost have to find someone like yourself that is specifically going to not also do seniors, not also do a younger age group, not also do family, adult populations. It's an interesting time in your career to be doing this, because we've talked to a lot of people who have done your path. And I think all three of us, if we took truth serum, would say we'd love to have a 30-year career where we then transition into consulting work. Because to be quite honest, and I'm not saying consultants don't work hard, but I know of consultants that enjoy their consultant work differently than they enjoyed their municipal work. And it's not easier, but it is different, right? You don't have to respond to the public. You're coming in and you're giving some advice. You've got this experience you're leaning into. You went the opposite end of that spectrum. You went to startup. You said, I worked hard for 30 years. I'm not going to rest on my laurels and lean back into the couple years experience I have. You started from scratch. I mean, you're doing a startup after 30 years. You're turning it all over again. Like, is any of that, when did that hit you? When did you get into the job and say, oh my gosh, I could have just jumped with any one of these alphabet groups, and I could have been ABC Consulting and just come in and told someone how to apply a master plan. I mean, I literally have had you come out. Actually, you would have been terrible at it because she wouldn't take any money. You would have made no money. At Stacey drove to Pflugerville, talked to my parks board, and wouldn't take a dime. So she would be a terrible business woman, I guess, consultant wise. But how far in were you into this startup type nonprofit reboot before you said, oh my gosh, like all the work I have ahead of me?
Well, not long. Actually, when I was talking to the board chair about taking the position, he asked me if I'd ever done a startup before. And I kind of blinked my eyes and said, no, I mean, I've government work, right, for 30 years. There's no startup in that. But when I went home and thought about it, actually, we do that, even though we call it something else. But we opened a rec center, we opened a nature center,
consensus building. You're trying to, yeah,
absolutely. All the pieces are there. We just call it something different or do it a little bit differently with a lot of public input, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, right away, realizing that nonprofit management is a whole industry, and after school programming, there's a whole industry out there. I mean, there's a national association, there's a state association, all focused on out of school time. There's acronyms for it. There's data out there on it. And so, I mean, just immediately just trying to absorb all of the information about the mission that we have, but then also trying to absorb all the information about nonprofit management and fundraising. I mean, fundraising's again, it's a whole enterprise into itself. People ask me, how am I enjoying it? And through the first year, I said, it's been great. It's a dream job. I've had no staff and I've had no customers. So what could go wrong? So it was, but I learned so much. What I have enjoyed the most is learning something new and using my brain and my skill set in a different way, because again, a lot of what I was doing previously applies here. I'm just doing it a little bit differently.
Is there a fear? I just want to follow up quick on Shane's question. For those individuals out there who are hearing this story and they're saying, wow, this actually, sounds like something I would love to run a nonprofit, a startup, right? People, that's exciting to people. And you hit something a few moments ago, and that was the fundraising aspect, right? And I think we all know that from our state associations, from watching them try
maybe
to,
a foundation, a parks foundation.
Yeah, foundation,
yeah.
Exactly. So we see that there's a lot of pressure there. There's a lot of pressure. And, I think someone who might be green and new to the startup, it might come a little harder to them because, Stacey, your contact list, especially staying in New Braunfels, that's pretty much even more of a dream situation, right? You're not starting up from scratch where you don't have any communications or network in your area. That's obviously to your benefit. For the individuals, I think when we work in municipal rec, there is this sense, this security blanket that, hey, you know what? The taxpayers are going to pay us regardless. You know what I mean? And outside of something catastrophic happening, which we all, had a very big scare a few years ago, you always have the taxpayers, whereas that's not necessarily in your back pocket. What was that process like? The kind of thinking about that. I mean, you're fully relying on your efforts and, those efforts of the people you work with to raise the funds that ultimately, pay your salary.
It was overwhelming. Even when I started, we didn't have a full year's funding to pay my salary. But I asked one of my good friends who works for a nonprofit in New Braunfels, when I was considering the job, I asked her, what is it like to work for a nonprofit? And should I be worried about the fundraising? And she couched it in a really good way to me that what our mission is, whatever the mission of the nonprofit is, there are funders out there in the world looking to give money away to that mission, whether it's kids or homeless or animals. There are people, foundations that want to support that. And our job is to line up with that organization that is looking to support our mission. And so that's what we've been focused on. You eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? So when you start thinking about, well, which foundations and what does the application look like? It's pulling, you have a bunch of puzzle pieces. And so for this grant application, you take these 10 pieces and give it to them. And this application takes maybe 7 or 8 pieces and you give it to them. So just lining up what they're looking for, putting your mission forward and letting them support that. But the other side of it is something that you talked about, Tom, is that my local contacts. And I was thinking about this morning that I was going to be on the show. And one of the things that I've always tried to coach people on is making sure that the people that you're coming in contact with day to day, right? You want to put them on your team. So someone comes in to complain about trash in the park or the high grass or, the way the referee called the game last night. And those are all opportunities to listen to those people, but win them over. You deal with the issue, but then you don't stop just there. You keep talking with them and building a relationship with them so that now they're behind you as you're advocating for whatever the needs are, right? So just by grace, I was able to, and longevity, 19 years, I was able to have a lot of folks in the community that were supportive of what we did, which was not hard because it's Parks and Recreation. I always say, of all the departments in the city, I think we have it the best with the community because we take care of their kids. And so there's a trust level there. So we had a large group of supporters. And what's been really heartwarming and interesting to see is as donations have started coming in from the community. So we have fundraising to foundations, and those are the big dollars, but there's the community fundraising aspect. We've received several significant donations towards our efforts from contacts that I've had in Parks and Recreation. And I know the only way I know them is, my contact with a garden club or a focus group or just an individual relationship from someone coming into the office, which just goes to show you when you treat people well, hopefully, and you have a good product, then they're going to be there to support you.
I love that.
But we're not done. Our fundraising goal for our facility is $15 million, which when I say it out loud, it sort of makes me take a second breath because that's a lot of money to raise. When I think about, we had projects at the city all the time that were $15 million. That would be no big deal. Well, it'd still be a big deal, but we did a lot of them. But to have to raise all of that money is a little overwhelming. We're 55% of the way there in a year. And so again, we're fortunate that we have a great project that, just like the three of you, teens need help. And it's kind of a no-brainer when you start talking about helping this particular group.
First of all, you just said some amazing takeaways I think that I hope people can relate with, but we joke about how many listeners we have.
Yeah, we're not going to help you.
We don't.
That
I'm going to say the opposite of Shane. Maybe we will.
No way.
Is there anywhere one of our listeners can go? Should they just hop on and check out Youth Collaborative?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Our website is www.thenbyc.com. So thenbyc.com. And we do have a donate button on our website. So feel free.
Awesome.
The week after we post this, if your numbers just start skyrocketing, I think we should get an invite to the initial ribbon cutting and be there.
Absolutely. Oh, I'd love for you guys to come here and see it. And I not for any boastful or selfish reason at all, but I really do hope that this facility will be a trendsetter for Parks and Recreation and for communities to see when you focus on kids and give them a safe space, the influence it can have in their lives. I was talking to a young lady in town, right when I moved to New Braunfels. There was an after-school program that two ladies just ran it out of their own pocketbooks, and it was called Upstarts. And this lady, who is now early 30s, was a part of that program. And she was telling me if it wasn't for this after-school program, she didn't know where she would be today, that she never wanted to go home. It wasn't safe for her at home. No one in her family believed in her. They did not even think there was no expectation for her to graduate high school. the ladies that ran this program pulled her in and wouldn't let her quit and said, of course you're going to graduate high school, but not only that, what else are you going to do? And just really built her up to believe that, okay, I can do something. And so today she owns a roofing company. Number one, she's a small business owner. So kudos to her for making it. And she's been in business for over 5 years. So she's beaten the odds, but she's a female roofing company owner and she's doing great. But she told me that she gives all the credit to where she is now back to being involved in that after school program and the people that believed in her back then. So it just gets me very excited to think of how many more business owners and executives and parks and recreation professionals, that we're going to have because of our program.
Yeah, Stacey, I think you're onto something that you mentioned earlier. You got asked about this opportunity. You took some time to reflect and think about it. I don't know that you will truly know the impact until like several years down the line. So you tell that story, and earlier you mentioned like a variety of groups that you worked with or that you will work with. I went through Young Life. I was an avid visitor of Young Life camps and programs. And if I did not go through that program, I don't know where I'd be right now. Like I can tell you and honestly say like that organization set me on the right path to get away from some of the things that I were doing or wasn't doing correctly in my life. And the more people that will be able to tell that story when you open this facility and you get involved in the community, like it's going to be endless. And I know we've talked about park and recreation makes an impact all the time, which we do. There's no doubt about that. But I think we've always struggled with that age group and the youth and that 12 to 18. Like every time I'm talking to another organization, and my organization recently like did a little collaboration with Raleigh Park and Rec, and there was a big conversation about like, how do you serve your teens? Like, what are we doing that we can do better? So I think just like hearing that one story, obviously like it's going to be tremendous down the line when you get to that point. And I'm sure that was part of the motivating factor for you to take that leap of faith. But in knowing this is not going to happen for a little bit, what has been like the one surprising thing so far that you've been in the role for the first year that like really light bulb went off, like you made the right decision?
Oh gosh. So I have been doing presentations, I'm on the lunch
circuit
through New Braunfels, Rotary Club, Lions Club, all the clubs, and talking about what we're doing. And to a man, that everybody that I have talked to about it has had nothing but positive things to say. They're excited about it. They're looking forward to it. They see the value in it. And I think the difference between this project and the city projects, it didn't matter. The coolest park, the coolest rec center, there was always somebody in the back complaining and grumbling that it was too big, it was too small, it was too wide, it was too, all just something. But it hasn't been that way with this project. Everybody's been a teenager and it's hard. And it was hard for us when we were teens, but we didn't have social media and the academic pressures and, all the things that teens have now. And so of course, many of the people I'm talking to have teenagers at home or had teenagers at home. And I just think it's so relatable to know that someone could breathe a little confidence and stability into you. It just makes sense.
You've got some experience creating these new types of programs. You created for us in the state of Texas, the Lone Star Legacy Parks program. And I think it's something that'd be great to talk about because I don't know if other states have it, but other states would benefit. Can you explain a little bit about that program, why you created it, and did you think it would get to where it is right now?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it. So it was probably 12 years ago, TRAPS, the Texas Recreation and Park Society, was celebrating our 75th anniversary. And so the board of directors, which I was not part of at the time, they were coming up with all kinds of ideas on how to celebrate. And I wish I remember what the genesis of the idea was, but I don't because I'm old now. But the idea was that there are historic parks or iconic parks in every community. you know, that the first one maybe, or the biggest one, or the one that's most sentimental and of celebrating these parks. Is because Landa Park, which is the iconic park in New Braunfels, was also celebrating 75 years, the same year as Traps. That's what it was. And I thought, well, how neat to celebrate this anniversary. And so the idea, as we talked it through, because it wasn't me by myself coming up with the idea, I just had the spark, but we talked about parks that are 50 years or older, that have special prominence in the community. So Memorial Park in Houston, phenomenal park, right? It's got great reputation. It's huge. They've spent millions and millions of dollars in it over the year. Is significant to the city of Houston, just like Starkey Park in Seguin, Texas, with a population of 20,000. That park has the same significance to that community. So it doesn't matter the park size or the population size or how much money has been spent on the park. It's more about the meaning of the park to the community and recognizing that. So we came up with an application and we asked agencies to describe how did the park come to creation? What special features are there? Are there any historic features to it? Like, did CCC or WPA work get conducted there? Are there historic landmarks there? And so they give us just a very robust look at the park. And then it's a scoring. And if you score 80 points or above, then you qualify for the designation. So it's not one park a year. Some years we've had 7 parks. I think one year we had 5, and that was the fewest that we had given out. But and we've recognized parks all over the state of Texas and it's a big state, as y'all know, from one end to the other, from the beaches out to Fort Davis, in the Metroplex, all the way down to the valley. And so it's really interesting. And we keep these histories of the park on the Traps website. So you can go and you can read. And the idea too is that eventually we would like to promote historic tourism. As you're traveling through Texas, there's a lot of winter Texans that come down from up north. They can stop, they can see these parks, they can pull up the stories on the website and read about how this park impacted the community. And if I'm not going on too long, but just a couple of things that are really interesting about as you read all these park histories. One thing is that many of the parks only exist today because a group of women marched on City Hall, and that includes one of the parks here in New Braunfels. The local utility company wanted to put a substation on it, and a group of women said, absolutely not. That needs to be a green space. And this was 70 years ago they did this. It needs to stay green space. Our kids can come out of the house and play there. And that's happened in other communities too. So I find that interesting. Another interesting ribbon that kind of goes through is the landscape architects, Hare and Hare, have designed many of these legacy parks now.
Oh, cool.
And so I did some research on who Hare and Hare are. And the senior Hare was a cemetery designer, and his son was in the first landscape architecture class under Olmsted.
Oh, wow.
And so in my mind, they are the Olmsted of the Southwest, because that's where he learned his technique. And so they are, of course, they're not around anymore, but their imprint goes from the Midwest all the way down to the University of Texas campus and parks in Houston and Dallas and Fort Worth and around. So it's pretty interesting. I would encourage any state to consider doing the same thing, just to record those histories. And we talk about how parks impact lives, and that definitely, is one way to show it.
Is there a park that only because you found out about it through the Lone Star Legacy program did you go and visit? And did it live up to everything you were hoping it would?
Well, actually, the thing that comes to mind is that I was in downtown Austin recently, and Austin has a handful. Austin and Fort Worth and Houston have the most parks with the designation, but it was a very small kind of a pocket park, but it's historic based on what happened there. And so if you blink when you're going by in the car, you would just think it's a median or just a kind of a vacant lot. But it is a park there that has part of Texas history happened on that site. And so just knowing that when I drove by, I thought, oh my gosh, that's what it's all about.
Can I ask you a question? Did you formulate that program when you were serving as the president of the state association?
No,
Separate?
it was a long time after that.
After?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I actually, that's a question I wanted to ask you going back to the intro. We don't talk about that a lot, actually. And I feel that state association and even local, if you have one, a local chapter, involvement is very common. But we don't talk a lot about that involvement. I served as a state president a long time ago. I think way too young to do it, but I took it on, and
We do
who knows,
too.
right?
We
Yes,
all
yeah.
thought
Well,
it
I think I did it right off the heels of the Young Professional Network term as well. So I know how I feel, but I want to hear how you feel about the process and how you would maybe advise someone who says, I really want to get involved with my state association. It's daunting. I'm kind of scared to do it, especially going up into the level or an executive level such as the president role. What was that like for you, and what advice would you give to someone who wants to get involved but maybe doesn't know the route or if it's right for them?
Yeah, that is a great question. I would have to say for me, it was sort of by accident, but mostly because my supervisor at the time really encouraged me and kind of gave me free rein to be as involved as I wanted to be. And that's Sally Gavlik. She's been around Texas for a long time. She's a former state association president. She was involved in NRPA. Anyway, she's done a lot of things in her career, but she was very gracious to all of her staff to encourage us to be involved with professional development in, membership and associations and whatnot. So it might have been Sally even nominated me to be on the board before I even probably like what you said, Tom, probably before I was qualified to be on the board. I was a young professional. And so that just opened a lot of doors for me. And which I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity. I've always tried to encourage that to my staff. If you want to be involved with whether it's aquatics or outdoor rec or NRPA or whatever it is, go for it, do it. And so the advice that I would give people is don't be afraid to ask to be involved. And I know there has to be a work-life balance, and we talk about that more now than we ever did, but I would say try to say yes to things.
Yeah.
If you're asked to be on a committee or asked to help score applications or provide input or attend something, say yes. Because as you're saying yes, you can start discerning things that are meaningful to you and things that aren't, and you can start saying no at some point, or at least giving your time to the things that are most meaningful. But you won't know unless you get in there and dig in a little bit and see what it's all about. And whether that's state or NRPA, you've got to be willing to try and put some time in. And I've had staff ask me before, what do you think I should do about professional development? Well, I think you should be on a committee, and I think you should maybe run for an office, but just know that it's going to take some of your personal time, because we'll give you time at work to do it, but sometimes you can't. You've still got to put all your work time in, and then you got to put your professional development work on top of that. And so just know that it's going to come at some kind of a cost. And I'm not saying to go crazy and bury yourself where you can't meet your commitments, but just go into it with your eyes open. But so worth it, so worth it. I think the three of you are good examples of that too.
Yeah, we get asked that question all the time, I think, from young professionals or people that may not fit the category of young professional, but like, hey, what can I do next to help stand out on my resume or my next level? And it's, I'll ask them that question, like, how are you involved locally, statewide, nationally? And a lot of times they say they're not. And it's like, you think about Shane, Tom and I, like we all served as YPN president. We might've served on COPART or on CAPRA or CPC. Like we've all served in a variety of different roles. Not to say that's given us the jobs we've gotten, but it obviously helps us grow and puts us in positions where people trust us to make decisions and trust us to lead a team. So, I mean, there's no better answer than say yes to an opportunity that you can get involved.
There's no shortcut in that either. Like at some point you do have to you can't cut to the front of that line in some ways. You do have to serve on a
Yeah.
committee. You have to serve in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You can jump to the front of a line and maybe you can be a director earlier than you were ready. Maybe you can be the state president earlier than you're ready, like
Yeah.
Tom was saying, for example. But to create a network that
Yeah.
you can rely on when you need it and others are envious of, there's no shortcut to that. It is hard work serving on committees, presenting, or doing other things that it takes to be known enough, to be involved enough to this stupid Zoom thing where it always gives me a thumbs up when I say something. But
Only when you're talking, we don't
it really
understand.
is. It drives me insane. But yeah, there's no shortcut to it. And there's no shortcut to having a well-developed network. You can't inherit it. Even if someone works directly under Stacey or Chris Nunes or Michael Kirschman or any of these people we hold in high regard, just working under them it provides you every access to their network and maybe even a leg up to someone that's never worked under those people. But you still have to build a connection with every one of those people to have that same type of network and impact. There's just no shortcut to it.
No, you all nailed it. And I just want to go back. I'm glad we had this conversation. I don't know that we talk about it enough here, and we do. I know a few of us given some sessions on this, but I think this conversation sometimes like this is almost even a little better than a presentation because we're openly kind of riffing and giving some dialogue. And Stacey, the support piece is number one. That's where everything started for me. I had Linda Fowler, who was my first director, supported everything, pushed me in those directions and said, go for it. And now for me it's a big part of it is really just paying that forward to the individuals that are in my own department, those who aren't even in my department, that are just, I can maybe reach out and give a hand to and point them in the right direction. So that's a big part of it, is just having the support or giving that support to other individuals. A lot of the times I feel that maybe they may not feel they have that support. So you got to show it to them.
And you can't just say, okay, I don't have the same type of director Tom did or Stacey did at one time, because that won't always carry out to other agencies. But if you have enough support where they allow you to go to conference, then you can find a Linda Katowski or someone that can provide you that surrogate support that you might not be getting in a director level. I don't know if necessarily Fort Worth provided me a lot of opportunities to go to things. I don't think they gave me any guidance or support in any of it. But once I got to those places, I found key mentors or people that then could give me the things that maybe I wasn't getting at that level. And so I don't want people to leave here saying, oh, well, if I don't have one of these, someone that's held in high regard in our industry already, I just can't do it. No, you just have to get there. And then you've got to try to create that inertia.
Yeah, and that's why we have programs like the Academy Mentorship Program too, right? You could find people that are out there to help you and just offer some advice. I will say a closing thought on that, getting involved. One of the other parts of it that I really love, we talked about this, I think, on one of the last episodes. It's almost like you become part of a club too, right? So you now are part of this past president's club or whatever it is. Who doesn't want to be a part of club? And for a couple of us here, we're on that Robert Crawford club, so whatever, just a few of us. But either way, hey, rapid fire. Stacey, my first rapid fire is not going to be for you. It's going to be for Jay and Shane.
Oh, no.
When Stacey told me that she was voted as it was most dependable, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So
I know you're jealous. That was what you all wanted to be known for.
That's right.
She did preface. She goes, it was boring. I was like, yeah, but that's a pretty good one. That's a real good one.
She had a multi-tool in her purse. They always knew they could call her.
So did either of you, either serious or super silly, whatever, have a superlative that you were given in high school?
I had two.
All right, let's hear it.
I was voted best personality.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's a shocking. I think the second one y'all would adamantly disagree with, and most of my friends did as well. I was also voted most friendly.
Most outgoing. Okay, friendly. All right. Yeah, well,
friendly.
Same.
Were you most friendly?
No. Go ahead, Jay.
I got nothing. I was not voted for anything for high school. So not that I can recall.
Continuing the awardless streak of his life.
This is not a setup. I don't remember. We had kind of serious ones and silly ones, and I don't remember. Like I remember the silly one, and it will not shock anybody. By the way, it was most likely to be late to graduation. And I kid you not, I walked into the gym during this superlative announcement as they were announcing it after the ceremony started, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
He's been late to our fantasy football league before.
That's true. It cost me the first overall pick. So,
unbelievable.
Either way, I wanted to have some fun with you, given that Stacey had shared that fun fact with us.
Love that. Okay, so I'll go next. I do have one for Stacey. Stacey is in the rarefied air that we've had people already talk about her on this stupid little podcast we have before she came on. So Noons and others had mentioned you. So in the light of the fact that you've transitioned over to this new role as a nonprofit, we asked a similar question to someone recently, but it wasn't with this bend on it. I'm going to have you start a nonprofit, and you're going to bring over 4 people from the industry that you've never worked with before. So it can't be Kelsey, Geronimo, whoever, someone that you've worked with for a long time, but who do you recruit over, and what role do you give them in this brand new nonprofit?
My goodness. That's tough. There's so many good people out there, including my own team here in New Braunfels.
We won't know any of them, so you can't use those. It's got to be people from our industry.
One of the guests, or Shane, asked us, reversed this question on us one time, and I like to think of these questions as hopefully the questions nobody else listens to, so that they don't feel that they've been left out. So tried to stall for you there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. I need a fundraiser, somebody to be in charge of raising money.
Director of fundraising. It would be who?
Yeah. Well, you just said Chris Noons. I think he is probably as good at closing a deal as anybody that I know. So I think he'd be gifted at that.
We're all while we're stretching for you. We said we wouldn't mention this because we didn't know who would be on, but we're all wearing Virginia gear for Matt Noons. You know, good luck to Matt in the lacrosse tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Let's see. I would need somebody to be in charge of the programming.
Okay, director of programs.
Yep. Let's see.
Would that also be doing events, programming events, the galas and all that? Okay.
Right.
Or is it galas?
Yeah. And something else I've learned in this role is there's a gala season. When all the nonprofits have their fundraisers, it's usually in the spring. And so they all get together, at least locally. I'm sure it happens in every community. They get together and they talk about what dates they're going to do it so that they can, everybody can have a weekend.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So who's your director of events and programs?
Okay. I am thinking, although I do not know him well, but I know y'all do, and I've been aware of what he's done. Nate, Amelia, go getter,
social king, yeah,
absolutely. I have some great people that work for me doing programs, so we're out there that I just didn't say your name because
right.
I couldn't.
We didn't allow
really talented program people.
Oh, I'm sure.
For marketing and communications, I think I'd take Katie Keller.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that, Katie. That'd be great.
Again, I don't know her very well, but I am, familiar with.
We have a RecLess roster right now.
And we have constantly reached out to Katie when we've been doing marketing stuff and asked questions. So a great one.
Yeah.
So I think you did an amazing job. And Shane, I'm pretty sure guests are going to start giving us off limits questions from here on out because you do this just about every time. Jade, you got one for Stacey?
Yeah, I think in the park and rec world, we do a lot of, copying people's programs or events just because we see things that are going on Facebook and social media. Is there another youth organization or youth city that has a similar organization that you've kind of looked into to kind of track how they've grown and developed over the years?
Absolutely. First, I want to say I have borrowed a lot from Parks and Recreation. One of the first things I did when I started in this role was take my board up to Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we toured some rec centers, Grand
Cool.
Prairie, Arlington, because they have some really special spaces that I wanted to replicate here. So lots of stuff from Parks and Rec still. But as I've been looking for a facility like ours that's kind of a standalone, its own organization, there is a teen center in Prescott, Arizona called the Launchpad. And they are top notch. I'm so impressed with everything that they put out, the programs that they do. I've talked to their executive director on the phone. I want to go and visit it in person because it's really impressive what they do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, Stacey, I think, we say this with all our guests, but we had a really great time with you, and we could probably have a round 2 with you at some point. And we've taken up a lot of your time, so we'll let you go. And
It went quick. That was great.
It did go
It goes so
It was
quick.
fast.
It did.
It does. It always does. I had a blast, and so many takeaways for me, and I know our guests, I'm sure, as well. So thank you for making the time. It was a pleasure.
It was fun. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thank you, Stacey.
See you
See ya.
soon.
All right, bye,
Bye.
Stacey.
See ya.
She was
Hey.
great.
She is great. She's always great. What I really noticed today that I hope, or maybe I haven't really looked at through this lens, and I hope that our listeners see, is that the ideas that we get from some of our guests, Stacey just gave us so many where I almost, typed in my phone and wanted to say, I got to look this up later.
Mhm.
That last, what was the group she just talked about last, the teen
Prescott,
center, right?
yeah.
Like,
I already Googled it, and it's
Yeah.
on my website here, looking to pull up as soon as I'm done with, Prescott, Arizona, the launching pad.
the launching pad. Yeah. So I really love that about our show. And Stacey obviously did not disappoint with that.
Yeah,
No.
she's great.
Great guest.
Guys, thanks for joining me today. And everybody else, we will see you next time on RecLess.
See ya.
See ya.